Saintess summons skeletons. By Morn. Chapter 321, Poetic Visions. Orator. Sofia cried out. Saria looked surprised for a second after her mouth had been hijacked, but she understood what was going on thanks to Sofia's outcry, and decided to let things play out. That would be me, the orator answered through Sofia's mouth. And before you ask, youngling, your sister risks nothing, and neither does your guardian, for that matter. Sofia pressed the bodiless voice for answers. How do you know that? You were surprised I could survive your presence at all before. The orator switched to speaking through Saria again. A curious thing, is it not? One this lord has been investigating. Answers have been found, system shenanigans, hidden within your soul, and your sister's. As luck would have it, it was your reunion which helped elucidate the mystery. Shenanigans? Do you have to speak through us? Saria asked after the orator finished speaking. This one shows reluctance as well? Such a pity, it answered through Sofia, his voice then coming from somewhere near the door. Regardless, the system finding countermeasures has been an interesting development, one I will be taking full advantage of, the bone statuette of Zire said. So it was something he couldn't do himself? I thought the lords were more powerful than that. Speak aloud, Saintess, I have a numerous audience on this day, the oddly excited voice of the orator came from Sofia's mouth. Right, reading my thoughts and all that, I forgot, sorry. Hey, isn't now a great time to find out weth? Sofia repeated her previous thoughts for Saria to hear. It's true that this hardly feels like a discussion with someone strong enough to erase gods, Saria added. Fools, the orator said from another corner of the room, forming a mouth with the bed sheets. Power never was the issue, it had always been the pathetic brittleness of the sapient mind which was. Does your kind care to avoid stepping on the crawling insects? Do you lack the power to do so? Fair point, Sofia agreed without much conviction. So, great powerful uncle orator, would you be so inclined as to satiate the curiosity of these two brittle sisters? Also, are you going to help me with Aretti's request? And through Sofia, the orator sighed. All modicum of respect has been lost. My repeated appearances must be to blame. That I would be the cause of my own downfall, oh, the sweet irony. So be it. I shall distribute the sparks of knowledge, as such is my purpose at this time. Switching to Saria's mouth, he continued, tell the lizard that looking is futile. What she is searching for is no longer of this world, only echoes yet remain. When the time is right, it will present itself once again. Then do you know where and when it will be? I don't really get it, but that would probably help her. When is obvious? Where is untold? That is all which needs be known. Always speaking in riddles. I appreciate the help nonetheless. What about the administrators? Is our guess correct? Saria also asked. Sofia watched herself shrug. Correct is not the word I would have picked, but there is a hint of truth amidst the fog. The administrators. It was fun whilst it lasted. Then, self-proclaimed nieces of the deep, let this immemorial sing you a bedtime story. The world around Sofia, Saria, and Perith completely disappeared. In a dim red void, the orator's voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. With it, the red void came alive, dancing flames wrapped around unknown blurs. The orator's voice was rhythmic and heavy, oozing with otherworldly power and authority. Three fates entwined, their call fulfilled. The first is gone, forever stilled. Fell prey to greed, they were so bold. None shall steal the griffin's gold. The flames dimmed, the red void shook, colors emerged, then faded, space was torn and built anew, countless stars streaking in the horizon. The orator's voice echoed again, it became faster as it sang, and so did the stars, becoming little more but streaks of light. The second drift, through endless space. In cosmic realms, they found no place. They sought to reach, a fruitless dance. A past long lost, a final chance. The streaks of light paused, and cracked, they shattered in countless pieces and spread through the vast expanse of the void. From each piece, came the orator's voice, all slightly different, they harmonized. The last one sleeps, they are broken. Nary a dream, thoughts forsaken. Perhaps one day, forced awake, they will leave nothing in their wake. As the last word of the poem faded, so did the strange void. As she regained the ability to think, Sofia panicked. The knowledge of this event was fading just as fast as the illusion she had been trapped in. Like a morning dream, the words of the poem, as fleeting as the flitting stars, were quickly disappearing from her memory. Visibly, Saria was the same. Without a word, she had jumped from her chair and started frantically etching words into the wall with her bare nails, for lack of a better writing implement. Sofia tried to use bone dominus to write on a bone slab, but the precise control it required only worsened the memory loss. Finally she summoned a puddle of blood, and after dipping her fingers into it, wrote what she could in blood on the floor. A few seconds later, the two sisters stopped, looking at each other and the result of their efforts. Sofia asked first. Saria, do you remember what just happened? After he spoke of a bedtime story, barely. I remember singing in flames. And these words? Well, I don't remember them, but here they are. We are the same then. I should have known it wouldn't be that easy. It was not too bad. Our texts are both missing quite a few words, but we can probably get close to the full thing by combining them. I'm more worried about the hallucinations I'm still having. Hallucinations? You're still seeing things? Saria looked around the room. She described, it's like ephemeral glittering shapes. That does sound like it's related to the deep, then, that weird, I don't see any. Reality disappeared around Sofia. She became a witness to a scenery she recognized. One she had caught glimpses of during her fight against the emissary of Ormoncleith, one of ungraspable geometry and confounding truths, overlapping with reality. There were indeed glittering shapes fading in and out of existence around them, but more interestingly, as she looked around, Sofia caught a glimpse of a wandering shapeless titan, deep beneath the ground. She looked at it, and to her horror, it looked back. Sofia? Hey? Hello? Saria called out to Sofia, softly shaking her by the shoulders. Perith was right there, looking over them. Ah. Oh. All right. Yet. I'm here. Did you not see that? Everything was back to normal, or as normal things could be for someone sitting on the floor, hands covered in blood. I don't know what you saw, but looking at your face I can tell you I didn't, no. The glittering stuff is still showing in the corners of my vision, but it's fading by the second, Saria explained as her eyes shifted from one side to the other. You're seeing fragments of the deep. And I just got to see directly into the deep's plane, I think. Neat. What color is it? Red, by any chance? It's, not really. I guess you could say it was close to reddish in overall tone, but the specific colors didn't match with anything real. It's a lot more shape than color, if that makes any sense. I think I kind of get it, the hallucinations I'm getting are a bit like that. Interesting then. So the deep is the red plane, for lack of a better word, Saria said. Why are you even trying to attribute it a color? Well, our physical plane is all colors. Mana is kind of all colors but whitish most of the time, and the spiritual plane is almost completely white, recessed is grey, margin black. Isn't it curious how the planes of existence have specific colors? So if the deep is kind of red, that only leaves the plane of the gods. I wonder what color that would be. I'd never thought of it like that. But if we're talking about the gods' plane, have you not completed the 99th floor of the spire? Oh! Saria cried out, you're right. How did I even forget about that? So that would be some kind of bluish purple. Really interesting. How did the different planes even come to be? Saria. Yes. Not that this isn't interesting, but shouldn't we focus on, the poem about the administrators one of the lords of said deep just gave us, that we struggled to preserve? Right. Well, it's not going to disappear. Chapter 322, Soulmates? The poem was reconstructed by cross-referencing the two versions and filling in the two blanks they had both forgotten with whatever seemed most appropriate. After some debating, they guessed that the first admin was a dragon who got erased by the deep based entirely on the word gone, and because they couldn't let go of their first theory, the second they thought was a hero who tried to return to their world and failed, and the third one. They weren't too sure about it. Saria seemed to think it might be the fourth lord, but Sofia knew there was something wrong about that. The pieces didn't quite fit, and as she reread the last line of the poem, they will leave nothing in their wake, she remembered a line from her previous encounter with the orator, which further consolidated her suspicion that the third admin couldn't be the annihilator. The annihilator's function is not to annihilate, or this world would have long ceased to exist. Saria thought leaving nothing in their wake might also be a metaphor for the destruction of the system, since the poem was about the admins, which could mean that the system's integrity depended on their continued sleep, The finality of it all was that Sofia had to leave for her second lesson. Perhaps it was thanks to the skeletal crow's escort, but nobody attacked her this time, and she made it to class before any of her students showed up. The classroom and corridor had been repaired, leaving no trace of the previous day's events. Only the faraway look, "It's the hand demon," and other such whispers of the half-awake students trudging to their classrooms reassured her that she hadn't dreamed the whole thing. News spread fast. "Looks like I'm a bit early. Might as well get comfortable." Arian entered the classroom first, a surprised look on his face. Sofia waved at him from her chair, not bothering to take her legs off from her desk. "Hi, Arian. Surprised to see me?" "Greetings, teachers." Arian gave her a polite nod and did so for Perith as well. He sat at his desk, ramrod straight, and finally answered Sofia's question, slightly surprised, "Yes. Most teachers don't come half an hour early." "There have also been rumors circulating." "About the hand?" Arian nodded. "So you already knew?" "I find it disturbing that they would try to slander the name of a new teacher so openly. I know necromancers are often negatively perceived, but these rumors are ridiculous." "It's sweet that you would think that, Arian." "It's no. But whatever you heard was probably true," Sofia continued. "Hey. I haven't heard the rumors themselves, but from what I've heard on my way to the classroom, it's probably just true." "The eye. Did you actually suck the bones right out of their hands like honey?" Arian asked, dubious. "Oh, never mind, that's a bit exaggerated. I don't eat bones." "No," Sofia denied. Arian relaxed a little on his chair. "I did steal them, though." "You stole their bones?" Arian asked with a shiver. "Want me to show you?" Sofia asked. Despite Arian's uncomfortable looks, she poked her left hand with the sharp claws of her scaled arm, struggling a bit to get past her tough skin until her entire finger pierced through. "What do you know? Wait. Ah, no, I will be fine. Thank you." "Does this not hurt?" Sofia shrugged. "It does hurt still, but I'm used to much worse. You will too, eventually. And this is honestly nothing." She pulled her finger out of her palm, and waved her injured hand like someone who just touched a hot pan. She stopped to wipe it, and showed her hand to Arian again. "See, already healed. Are you not a duke's son? I thought you would be more used to this kind of thing." Arian shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Touchy subject. I guess nobility is always fucked, human or Exidian, all the same." Searching for an escape for her student, Sofia changed the subject to the first thing she thought of. "All right, give me the name of your skills. Since you're here early, you get some bonus coaching." Turning around, she found the chalkboard, but no chalk. This raised an eyebrow, but she just dumped a bunch of bone to make a bone board of the entire wall under the curious looks of the young Exidian noble. "So. I have 6 active and 3 passives so far. The active are: Arian, Invoker LV57. Active. Invoke swords. Invoke shields. Invoke health. Invoke wings. Invoke walls. Invoke traps. Passive. Bonding strength. Lesser magical resistance. Bound armor. Are you sure you don't need the levels?" Arian asked from his chair. "No, skill levels are honestly overvalued. It's important to keep them to a usable level, but often how you use the skill is a lot more impactful than its level. So the armor wasn't actually a summoned object. This class is intriguing. Why did you not invoke any traps against Perith?" "This is my most recent skill, I still struggle to use it well. I was excited about getting another attack skill at first, but it's just weak." Sofia gave him a compassionate smile. "Bad skills happen, I've had some of those. The worst skills are those which are too situational to be useful when you need them. I'll reserve judgment about invoke traps for after I've seen it in action, though. Looking at your skills for now, invoke walls is probably your best tool. Having wings so early is also quite nice, that's a big advantage against others in your level range. Did you do duels for tokens yet?" "I have not. I know Shaili and N have, but I would rather train my skills instead of chasing a sword I will never get." "You don't seem convinced by your own words." "All right. New assignment, I want you to go do some duels every day if you have enough free time. At least 1 or 2. It doesn't have to be for tokens, but you have to fight seriously." Arian looked at Sofia, as if expecting her to have been joking. After an uncomfortably long eye contact, he relented. sighing, understood, teacher. I wasn't done. You're forbidden from using invoke swords. Wah, this is unfair. How do you want me to? Listen to your teacher. You have wings, Arian. I think you're not understanding how big of an advantage that is for someone in the first filter. Just for this week, try to get some fights in like this. Try to win with your traps, walls, and aerial superiority. Arian was unconvinced, but Sofia gave him some space to think about it and, back behind her desk, discreetly cut her leg over a bone basin to try to convert some of her blood to light in the time until someone else showed up. She managed to convert one drop and smiled away the weird look Arian gave her when she cursed from the pain all of a sudden, claiming she had a cramp. One drop is still progress. N was next to enter the classroom and the other 3 students arrived in quick succession. As promised, Sofia went over everyone's skills. Garand had different skills for his different golems and they all required some prior preparation. Despite the apparent rigidity of these summons, Sofia spent some time thinking about the best way to use them, and the task she gave to Garand for the next class was to try to make a wall-climbing golem like an arachnid. In her opinion, the biggest flaw of his golems for now was how he defaulted to giving them a dwarven appearance because that was what he knew best. With more variety in form, he would gain variety in function. Lola's soul guardian turned out to be some kind of immortal fake soul which was capable of learning. It was a lot like a ghost Parith, and while the girl had been demoralized by her last fight against Parith, Sofia really thought Lola's class had the most potential out of the 5 students. Shayali's sprites were quite versatile and powerful for her level, where she struggled was not so much in using her skills to win, but in managing her mana and cooldowns. Sofia wasn't too sure what to do about it yet, she would have to see her fight a few more times to understand it well. Lastly, N had her totems. It turned out she had to make them entirely by herself, all their effects were enchantments she had put on them with her own hard work. It was impressive but also not something Sofia could help much with. Although she was going to help her with fighting, Sofia's first task for N was to get her to sign up for Ziray's classes. This whole skill analyzing session had taken much longer than expected, and there was no time to do the fighting part of the lesson afterwards. 4 of the students left the class but Shayali stayed behind. The fierce aura she had in her exercise against Parith the previous day was nowhere to be seen, she was meek and demure whenever she wasn't actively fighting. Do you need my help with something? Teacher, I wanted to know if you would trade a skeleton for supplementary lessons. Sofia spaced out for an instant, this was not what she had expected at all. Is it not possible? I thought because Teacher Vakaria is a necromancer. It is possible. What kind of skeleton are you talking about? Is it intact? How did you get it? I have several, from the monsters I train against, I dislike wasting materials so. Oh, sure, show me them, what kind of extra lessons do you want? I'm flattered that you trust me like this when I haven't really proved my worth or taught you much yet. The lightning you threw yesterday. You want to learn that? Try to have your sprites emulate it maybe? Good eyes. I don't know how feasible that is but I could try to teach it to you. That's going to cost you a lot of skeletons, this is one of my best moves. Stars gleamed in Shayali's purple eyes, for real. There is a facility in the academy to visualize skill patterns, it's expensive so I never used it but the higher levels use it all the time. Ah, but right, skeletons. Follow me, I'll show you my stash, I have a lot. Shayali was so lively it was like a different person, there had been more excitement in that one sentence than anyone had shown for any of Sofia's teaching yet. And Sofia was getting excited too. This girl has a skeleton stash. Chapter 323, The Way to a Sofia's Heart. After Sofia explained more of the skill's quirks and downsides to Shayali and made sure the girl knew what she was getting into, Shayali led Sofia and Parith to a deep part of the academy's underground. The damp and dimly lit corridors looked abandoned but they were far from it, even so early in the morning, there were already a few students coming to and fro this underground labyrinth. You go all this way every time you need to store something? Sofia asked as Shayali finally stopped in front of a sturdy wooden door. I can't afford a storage ring so these storage units are the best I can do. At least Lola is sweet enough to lend me her ring so I can bring those here, if not I could only try to sell them before coming back. Her and Garand are both not nobles, and storage items are expensive. Garand also carried his golems in a backpack. The iron key in Shayali's hand turned in the lock, and after a click, the door was open. Hugh! This stinks like a rotten zombie. Shayali's nose curled at the foul smell, but she rushed inside. Crap! One of my rituals must have run out. Following her, Sofia entered the storage unit, in the room about the size of their classroom, only lit by one of Shaili's red sprites. 5 piles of dead monsters were stacked against the walls inside of ritual circles. One of them had indeed ran out of mana and the pile of monsters was now more of a pile of rotting flesh. Want me to get rid of that? Sofia offered. The small Exidian looked at her teacher, then at the pile of rotten corpses. She was hesitant. Finally, she sighed. Please do. Sofia unleashed Bookie on the rotten mound. Don't worry, that'll be part of the trade, I can still make skeletons out of those. Can't do much about the smell, sadly. Is this book your storage item? Bookie? No. It's a living book? He eats corpses to summon skeletons later. Living. Does it speak? No, he's more like a very dumb dog. The skeletons he helps me summon are much smarter. Sofia and Shaili stepped out to have a break from the rotten smell while Bookie was having a huge meal. After Sofia explained some more about what Bookie was, omitting to mention the deep, she questioned the Exidian girl about the piles of dead monsters in the room. There were also a few piles of bones, which had caught Sofia's eyes, and a few wooden barrels. Lola sometimes takes me to her family's hunting grounds so we can train against real monsters. I keep all my kills to make some money. I sell the meat to the tamer students with carnivorous pets and I keep the bones to trade with necromancy and alchemy students who sometimes need them. The furs I sell in bulk to a clothing store near the academy when they aren't too damaged. You have a whole business going on. Do you do all the butchering yourself? I remove the internal organs before storing them like this, and the later parts I actually have someone working in the kitchens help me with for a small cut of the profit whenever they have time. Whoa! At her age I was reading books. Must not pay too well though. Going back inside, Sofia got to take a better look at the remaining piles of corpses. They were mainly forest-dwelling animals and monsters like wolves, giant bats, big furry snakes, and some kind of large cats with a lot of teeth. She had Shaili go over the specifics of each monster. They were all of species that generally stayed in the level 20 to 50 range, most of them local to Exidian's fauna. In the end, Sofia had Bookie eat all the bones from the bone pile and she collected one of each monster type's heads for the choir. That's probably about 60 new skeletons, quite a few pages for Bookie. I'll check them out in detail later. She also helped Shaili refill the mana of the freezing rituals which kept the corpse piles from rotting before they left. Leaving the storage room, Sofia told Shaili to bring them to the skill visualizer, and they had a longer talk on the way. So it's really not worth as much as what I'm going to teach you, even if I took all of it, but I'm not really looking for a fair trade. I just want skeletons, and you want knowledge, everybody is happy, Sofia explained when Shaili asked why she hadn't taken the entirety of her stash as she had expected. Thank you for your generosity, teacher. Thank you for the bones, student. Really it's not like that. I'm not even sure I can teach you the skill properly in the first place, you know? It won't be easy and you won't even be able to create a big lightning bolt for now with your mana. I wouldn't even have accepted if your mana multipliers weren't so high. I don't mind. It's fine if I learn it for later. Also I'm sure my sprites will be able to cast full skills all by themselves at some point, so I won't have to worry about the burns, Shaili enthusiastically answered. Quite the optimist, with the 2600 mana points you have now, if you can handle my newest version you can already make something strong enough to kill these monsters you hunt in one hit. But that's all your mana gone in a few seconds. I'm alright with that. Good. Then, before we get there, let's decide on what version you want to learn. Underscore 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 un. Perhaps unsurprisingly, when told of the two options, Shaili chose the piercing bolt over the explosive one. Technically it's the angel's skill. But if he didn't want me to spread it he shouldn't have shown me. Sofia still made Shaili swear that she wouldn't ever teach it to anyone else. It wasn't really binding in any way, but the kid had an attitude that Sofia thought could be trusted. If the skill still ended up spreading far and wide later, well, it wasn't really Sofia's problem. I doubt many would bother learning it in the first place. Not everyone has as much mana as I do, and not everyone has a dragon scale arm to withstand overcharging it. Sure, people above a certain level could use it more effectively than I can, but at this point I don't think they need to copy my skills to be strong. While Sofia thought over what it really meant to teach her skills to someone else, Shaili stopped. They were still in the academy's underground, but much closer to the surface, in well-lit, clean and well-decorated hallways. In a booth inside a wall, a kid in student uniform was sleeping, his glasses askew on his face, head resting on the counter. A plaque above the door near the booth read Visualizer Facility. "It's here," Shaili announced. "Looks like someone's sleeping on the job." Sofia knocked on the counter after having Parith get back inside her storage. The student behind the counter woke up with a jump, he almost yelped but managed to keep himself silent, the scream dying in his throat as he assessed the situation. Sofia smiled awkwardly. "I did not mean to scare you, sorry." No. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been asleep," the student apologized, fixing the position of his glasses. He quickly examined the duo. "Are you here to make a reservation?" "I had hoped to use the visualizer now," Sofia answered. The student cleared his throat, looked through some kind of hole to his side, then opened some kind of ledger and turned a few pages before addressing Sofia again. "Sorry, the facility is in use right now, but if you come back in 20 minutes when this class leaves, the next 4 hours are currently free." "I don't mind waiting 20 minutes. Do you have other classes this morning, Shaili?" She shook her head. "None, but 10 minutes shul." "Then I'll take the 4 hours, how much is it?" Sofia ignored the shocked, worried looks from Shaili next to her. "Alright, so, first of all I need both of your IDs, the name tag, age and level from your status window and your student passes." "Ah, I'm a teacher." The student seemed taken aback. "Ah, sorry, I should know but I still haven't memorized the list of new teachers. Please give me a second." Standing up from his wooden stool, the kid turned around and grabbed a new-looking leather-bound book. Quickly leafing through the pages. At one point he stopped and went back one page. "Teacher Sofia Vakaria Afinareth." "Well shit. I'm not surprised they have my full name but they really went ahead and printed that in a book. Are they brainless?" Belly Genus never even mentioned the deep, he just always called me Vakaria like Zafir wrote in the introduction letter. Well, whatever. Clearly this guy isn't disappearing. Still, I can't believe they approved of this. "That's me, yes. Just Vakaria is fine next time." "As you wish, Teacher Vakaria. So for teachers I only need the ID and room key, for your student it's still all I mentioned before. The rate for teachers is 10 gold an hour if you can provide the mana to run the machine, 20 otherwise, and 10 silver per hour per student you bring in with you," the student explained with a straight face. "How much mana would that be?" "I can probably do it, right?" "I'm afraid it's a bit high." "About 300,000 for an hour of continued use," the student worriedly indicated. "Oh, that's it. My Regan is well above 1,000,000 points an hour already. I don't need to pay extra, then. Here's 41 gold for the 4 hours, you can keep the change." The booth student fumbled to accept the gold all the while processing their documents and failing to understand how a level 249 teacher could possibly pay for the machine's upkeep when none of the mage-type teachers and students of this level ever could until now. Shaili looked just as shocked as the booth student, though Sofia felt that it was probably for different, more pecuniary reasons. Chapter 324, Deep Scars. After chatting for 20 minutes with Shaili and learning that she was also an orphan but had inherited a small city house and enough savings to survive by herself for a few years, the teacher who had been using the visualizer left with a small group of level 200 plus students of all ages in tow. "That's a goblin? Supporter, LV 300 plus. I don't remember this teacher from the opening ceremony. Then again I was busy staring at my ancestor. And I completely forgot to tell Saria about it." Sofia and Shaili entered the visualizer. After the short entrance corridor was a single huge spherical room with a flying platform in the center on which a pedestal held a polished black ball. The walls of the room itself were not simple, they reminded Sofia of the ranking spire's inner core Sen had brought her to. "A technology from the system?" Sofia pressed the button on her right labeled bridge and a bridge of solid mana appeared in the air, linking the corridor and the levitating platform. Walking on the bridge, Sofia asked Shaili, "Do you know which teacher that was?" "The hobgoblin who just left?" "That's Teacher Akin, he's well known for his fiery temper, he teaches transformation spells I think. I saw him transform into a giant rock and fly away once." "Like the monster rocks?" Sounds like a lot of trouble just for the ability to fly. You can fly too, right, Teacher Valkyria? How does it feel? You can just call me Sofia when we're not in class or around other teachers. Flying is great. It's hard to explain how it feels really, in terms of enjoyment I'd put it up there with summoning an army of skeletons. That. Don't get stuck on the details, anyway, we're here, any idea how this thing works? I think you're supposed to put your hand on the black crystal and activate the skill as you would, Shaili tried, uncertain of her explanation. Let's try that with a harmless skill first, then. A retract bridge button? Alright. Damn, this ball is cold. Does this only work on active skills? Activating the skill sounds wrong, maybe trying to focus and visualize the mana patterns makes more sense considering the facility's name. Thinking this, Sofia closed her eyes, and focused on what was by far her simplest magic, the spell version of Heal Undead, which did nothing but create holy light. It works! Shaili excitedly exclaimed. Sofia opened her eyes. In the air around the platform, thin curved beams of blue and red light showed a three-dimensional map of the mana pathways used to cast the spell. The blue beams of light were inside of a very faint human silhouette, showing the pathway locations inside the body. Although it was Sofia's simplest spell, it was already quite complex, hundreds of light beams curving and crossing in every direction. 3 parts of the blue lights were constantly shifting between different forms, which Sofia recognized were meant to control the direction, starting position, and intensity of the light. It's strange to see one of my spells like that. Can I turn it around somehow? Fiddling with the black crystal ball, Sofia found a way to move and turn the light blueprint, as well as zoom in and out, and even to highlight specific parts of the spell by focusing on them in particular. The ball was sucking mana out of Sofia's hand, and the expenditure was right about what the clerk had told her, a bit under 90 mana per second. This is crazy good. It's great for teaching, but that's incredible to help transition skills to spells or to understand how to alter them. What skill is that? Shaili asked. That's my most simple spell. It just makes light. Let me show you my most complex spell, then we can get started with the lightning bolt. Your most complex spell? Is it what summons an army of skeletons? Sofia laughed awkwardly. It's not. It's a secret, alright? Let's just have a look for fun, she answered before focusing on the mana patterns of summon blood. The human silhouette grew and grew until only the head fit inside the room. Inside it, complex structures of millions of tightly interwoven mana pathways appeared one after the other in quick succession until the entire room was almost filled with undecipherable bright beams of light. Then suddenly the entire room lit up in bright red along with a shrill sound, and all the lights disappeared, leaving Sofia and Shaili in complete darkness. Teacher! Sofia summoned a faint pillar of holy light above them. I think I broke it. Are we in trouble? If someone is, that will be just me, don't worry about it. The door opened and the clerk student came running through the corridor, barely stopping himself from falling inside of the spherical room. Is everything all right? He called out, worried panic in his voice. We're fine. Sofia shouted back, I'm not sure about the room though. Thank God, the student answered, this should be all right. This always happens when you try to visualize a specialized skill, I forgot to warn you. Aha, right, a specialized skill. The student profusely apologized for his mistake while he fiddled with a hidden panel in the wall near the bridge button. After 20 very long seconds, the lights finally came back on. All right. No summon blood. Lesson learned. I should have known when it only showed the head. That couldn't have been more than 5% of the whole thing. I don't even understand how the skill can cost so little mana and still. So, the piercing bolt. There it is. What do you think, Shaili? It's, much simpler than the one before, but I don't think I can learn that in 4 hours. I would be shocked if you could. The actual act of casting it is much simpler than it looks, though. Give me a few minutes to create a bone replica of this thing and then you can study that. It sure is a lot easier to understand what's going on when you see it like that. Do you need to visualize all that every time you use the spell? No, since I had the skill, it's instinctive for the most part, the system helped with that. But learning spells the regular way shouldn't be too hard, even though I've never really done it from start to finish. Actually, how about this, I will get you a storage item, yo. What? No, no. I can never pay for it, Shaili vehemently protested. Let me finish. I'll get you a storage item. Not a huge one but enough to store a dead monster or two. That's already huge. Shaili almost shouted, taking a step back inadvertently and hitting the railings of the platform. Sofia rolled her eyes. A single one, then, anyway, that will pay for the dead monsters I took, and you will also have to give me the skeletons of all the monsters you hunt this year. Meanwhile we trade skill for skill. Just give me any of your class skills, learning one myself will let me teach you better, I believe. Do you agree? Aren't you trading a storage item for my skill then? I'd trade all my skills for a storage item large enough to fit a whole monster. Shaili exclaimed, each word louder than the last, of course I agree every day of every. Shaili forced herself to shut up, she gulped and with a calm voice, she apologized for her outburst. After a second of reflection, she added, her voice now becoming quieter the more she spoke, why are you so generous? Why me? It's a bit worrying. I can never pay you back. Even the skill you accepted to teach me is probably worth more than a storage item. I saw how it blew straight through a high-level student's defenses, and that was with you only channeling it for a second. Sofia just waited for Shaili to stop talking. Are you done? She asked after a short silence. Yes. Took you long enough, Sofia answered with a smirk. It's not about you in particular, and I don't specially expect you to pay me back. As I see it, I'm just doing my best to help you as your teacher, and if your teacher is the one asking you for favors like a bunch of nice skeletons, isn't it logical that they should repay you? Why, you could pay any adventurer to get those skeletons for you. Sofia shrugged. I could, but I also don't care that much. I could go hunt them myself if I really needed, collecting more is like a hobby at this point. If you want the true reason why I'm helping you. You're polite, serious, a hard worker trying your best despite your shitty circumstances, willing to chase even a faint opportunity when you see one, in short, I think you deserve it, and I can afford it, so yeah. Of course I'm losing money if I buy you a storage item, probably several months of my teacher salary. But so what? Money exists to be spent. Several strong people have helped me get where I am, why should you not get some too? But what if I'm a liar? If it's just a front? You've only known me for one day, how could you possibly? Sofia crouched to be on eye level with the much shorter young woman. Are you a liar, Shaili? Words were stuck in Shaili's throat. Sofia smiled softly, she sighed. You know what, Shaili, you can prove yourself for certain. Just complete after me. There is no adult left willing to be your guardian. All kinds of emotions had crossed Shaili's face in the last hour, she was a very expressive girl, wearing her heart on her sleeve. But as Sofia spoke, for the first time, tears welled up in Shaili's eyes. With a trembling voice, she finished the sentence she knew all too well. Your class has been changed to orphan. We are sincerely sorry. Chapter 325, Do you do weird stuff? Simply sitting on the visualizer's platform, Sofia and Shaili spent a while talking about their respective childhood. They had lived though quite a different path in life, but the struggles felt similar. Whereas Sofia's class had been a trap from scripture, Shaili's class had been the result of a chance encounter. The winters in Exidian were very cold, explaining the countless chimneys decorating the city's rooftops. Shaili, living alone in the small house inherited from her parents, had no extra money for firewood. She would go through the winters shivering under her old blankets. She only had whatever wooden branches and kindling she managed to collect during the year to last her the entire cold season, allowing her the luxury of a rare hot meal and glimmer of heat once in a while. One night, as she was down with a high fever during a snowstorm, dying from heat in an ice-cold house, only lit by the faint ambient moonlight, she thought she was hallucinating as she saw snow fall through her window. The strange glowing snowflakes fell on her blanket, enveloping her body in a weirdly comfortable breeze. She felt her fever recede, falling asleep soon after. The next day she woke up feeling better, the soothing snowflakes nowhere to be seen. Her class had changed during the night. And that was the whole story of her unlocking the Sprite Caller class at age 9. And I woke up chained to a bed surrounded by guards. The church had summoned me during the night. And you managed to escape. That's a story for another time. We should get back to today's lesson, don't you think? I only rented this place for 4 hours. Ah, yes. Do you really want to learn one of my skills, then. Only if you don't mind. I'll do it. Teacher Sophia, just tell me what to do, was my guess right? Not quite, Sophia explained, put your hand on the crystal, and think really hard about the skill you want to share, try to remember how the mana feels when it leaves your body to activate it. She also put her hand on the black crystals. I'll be the one fueling it, so don't worry about that, this should work I'm pretty sure. Shaylee pressed her delicate blue hand against the black sphere, and almost instantly, beams of light shot around the room, creating a strikingly different pattern than anything Sophia had ever seen. That was fast. The mana patterns of my skills are all very chaotic, but this is more like a plant? Like a forest of vines branching out from a central point around the heart. This should be about the same complexity as the explosive bolts, so a bit easier than the piercing ones. You got the hang of it even faster than I did. Which skill is that? It's almost all internal, so maybe split focus. Sophia had found out that Shaylee's class shared that one skill with Alithas. Truthfully, it was probably the only skill of the girl which she could learn, the rest all had to do with using sprites one way or another. Surprisingly, Shaylee shook her head. This is called elemental sprite, she corrected. What? You probably shouldn't share this one, it's the interior. No. I want you to learn this one. Shaylee protested. Alright. Sure. But wasn't it a locked skill? Those usually change something fundamental about how your body works. I'm not so sure I can learn it just like that, but it might be worth a try. It would be funny to hide a sprite inside the skeleton's skulls, ready to jump out and unleash a surprise attack. But still. Didn't you say sprites would only heed your call if you had a good affinity with them? I may not be able to call any. I had never even seen a sprite before you summoned one in class. Shaylee furrowed her brows. If the lightning sprites don't even listen to your call, then nobody deserves to call them. But we can test your affinity with the sprites I have. She withdrew her hand from the crystal and closed her eyes. Sophia could see the girl's mana spreading around her body in the same pattern the visualizer had just shown. Slowly, it spread out and gathered around her, coalescing in a few colorful glowing spots. Somehow it felt adjacent to spatial magic, yet not quite the same. 6 dots of color appeared like this. They fluttered around her body slowly, like dancing lights reluctant to leave Shaylee's immediate surroundings. Pointing at the red one, Shaylee explained, this one is a fire sprite, green is wood, white is ice, yellow is light, grey is rock, and the almost invisible one is water. These are all the sprites I can call for now. Go ahead, try to touch them. Touch? Aren't they just mana? Sophia asked. Not really, they are like the weakest equivalent to gods? Sparks of their element. I have read a lot about them after I got the class, but it's hard to find good documentation on them. Still, you will understand what I mean when you touch one, if they let you. Just approach your hand and see how they react. Alright, let's see what these cute little sprites think of me. Sophia slowly brought her hand near the red sprite hovering around Shaylee's short blue horns. The sprite trembled at her approach, and fled to Shaylee's back. Not fire, Sophia said. I think they could get used to you, they didn't flee outright. Try another one. One after the other, Sophia tried to reach for the other elemental sprites, but they avoided her like the plague. The fire ones had actually been the closest one until the light one, which somewhat hesitant hopped onto Sophia's hand and back, nestling itself inside Shaylee's neck, but not fleeing. What does this mean? Sophia asked the young sprite expert. It looks like it's conflicted about you, I think. The light sprites like warmth, clarity of mind, healing, energy and shadows. It's easy to make them like you by just being a good person. You're very nice, so. Do you? You slide in abnormal ways. Ah. I see. Yet. I do, actually. What about spreading mana devouring rot through light? It makes sense this sprite of light, made entirely of mana, would be wary. Shaylee's expression of incomprehension made Sophia giggle. Well, should I still try learning the skill? I guess this is the only way to know if at least the lightning sprites will like me. I'm sure they will like you. Shaylee enthusiastically answered, putting her hand back on the crystal. Alright, focus on maintaining the visualizer, I'm sculpting a bone schematic. By the time the clerk came to tell the two women their 4 hours were up, no skill learning or teaching had taken place. Sofia had barely managed to make bone sculpts of both Angel's Bolt and Call Elemental Sprite's mana patterns, leaving her with a huge headache. Nevertheless, Sofia was very satisfied. She had learned a lot, just not about skills, but about her pupil. Underscore 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 un. On the way back to her room, she stopped abruptly in the middle of a hallway. Do I not? Frowning, she entered the closest empty classroom. She wanted to be somewhere quiet where she was less likely to be attacked. Sitting on a desk, she searched through the mess in her storage ring. It's got to still be around, no? Did I get rid of it? Did I sell it? No way. Did I give it to someone? Was it among all the shit I threw at the eye monster in the trial? How would I even lose that? Sofia dug and dug through her stuff, eventually finding what she had lost, buried under piles and piles of gold which she had totally not stolen from Sun's space temple. Got it. I knew it was still somewhere in there. There we go, no need to buy a storage ring. Astelia will be fine with me giving it to one of my students, right? Size of a barrel, it's perfect. That is a lot of money though. I should see with Zire if she can enchant it with a soulbind first. Space mages like Cardinal can just take stuff from an unlocked ring without the wearer even realizing. Even Orvad has a lock on his golden tooth. You really can't leave a storage ring just like that, or someone could get ideas. I don't want Shaylee's stuff to get stolen. Or worse, what if someone attacked her to get the ring? I could leave her with the black orb from the trial. That would also solve that problem until she's strong enough to defend it herself. Or both. Sofia made her way to Zire's room. She was not there. Does she have a class right now? Maybe she went out to eat. Right, when is Astelia's class? I really need to learn that teleportation skill. I also need to get Saria and go confront Jen with her. And I've barely even started progress on VPPV. And now I also need to work on the sprite skill. Arg, so much to do. Chapter 326, Exploring Magic. Sofia chose to train on the sprite skill first, because out of all the things she had to do, it was the most uncertain one. By the time she had to come out to teach again, her progress was not very good. Clearly trying to copy the entire thing at once was a fool's errand, so she had to train to form the mana pattern bit by bit. It was easier said than done. Reproducing about a 20th of the entire thing at once was the best she could do. She learned 2 such fragments, but trying to reproduce them at once only led to the collapse of both and her body suffering a minor backlash from the mana going astray. Her scepter could absorb the backlash, which would make the process easier, but since the students had no access to such a tool, she had to find a better way to teach them. It would have probably been easier just to ask any other teacher what the usual method of learning to cast wild spells from the raw schematics was, but she wanted to find it by herself. That day's class came and went. The 5 students spent 2 hours in a 5 versus 1 battle they couldn't hope to win, with Sofia using no skills and relentlessly slapping them with a napkin every time they failed to hit her. Despite their best efforts, they touched her 0 times. Sofia, hauled up in her room, spent more time trying to learn Call Elemental Sprite until her last class of the week, which was spent on more theory. Then came the 3 days of the week she had no work on. Underscore 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 un. Almost there. I can't believe the system does so much of the work normally. Even with ungodly amounts of mana to waste on this, it's still taking forever. Sofia had finally found a working way to reproduce the spell pattern with her mana, cheating. If she couldn't use the help of the system controlling the mana for her, what was to prevent her from using her bone sculpture as a guide? No need to precisely copy the pattern, just fill the bones. The backlash would also be absorbed by the bones instead of her body, which made this even better. The only issue was that she was learning to cast the spell outside of her body instead of inside, which failed to produce any kind of magic even when it looked like the spell was resolved correctly without any backlash. It did nothing the last 3 times. I assume that means the position of the magic inside the body has its importance. Does that mean a race with a different anatomy needs a different pattern for the same spell? Exidians are pretty similar to humans, from the outside at least. So it's probably fine. Sofia tried reproducing the spell inside of her body like the visualizer room had shown. She failed to construct it properly without the bone sculpture to guide her mana, and the spell crumbled. The mana rampaging inside her body was more violent now that the spell looked more like it should. She coughed up some blood. I need more training with the sculpture as a guide. But what if I just... Sofia used Bone Dominus to break one of her ribs, which took much longer than she thought it would, as she kept hesitating at the last second. Once it finally snapped at the base of her spine, she pushed it around inside her, making her skin bulge, which felt quite unpleasant, and waited until her passive healing rebuilt the missing rib. Just like this, she now had an extra piece of bone inside her torso. With Bone Dominus, she pulled a fine bone thread from the loose rib, and started recreating the spell pattern from inside. If the guide is inside me, it will definitely work, just like my veins being the guides for the apostle form spells. Still, it was easier said than done. She could only very slowly spread the bone thread around, to leave her passive healing enough time to stop the internal bleeding she was causing. Pain was actually not too bad, now that she had gotten started. She soon realized that the slightest of her movements would cause the bone threads to snap, leaving small bone shards everywhere in her thorax. This happened a few times until she locked her movements by encasing her torso in a rigid shirt of bone. Last but not least, some parts of the mana pattern she simply couldn't recreate because pesky human organs such as the stomach or the heart were in the way. However, all non-essential parts like her lungs were mercilessly pierced through. Slowly but surely, the new internal bone sculpture grew. Not accounting for the parts she couldn't copy due to stuff being in the way, she had about 60% of the spell pattern now inside of her, and it was very easy to send her mana to fill it up. Now I only need to focus on the remaining parts, much easier. Much easier still took her an entire day, but finally, the spell successfully activated. Mana gathered around her, and slowly, it coalesced into a single dot of black light, floating up and down right in front of her face. There was a faint connection between Sofia and the sprite. Much fainter than the one with Perith, but a connection nonetheless. Hi? Sofia wanted to try to touch it, but she couldn't move her arms due to the bone shirt, and she didn't want to shatter the internal guide again. The dot of light didn't answer, and identify gave nothing, but Sofia willed the sprite to stop moving, and it did. Great, so it does act like a summon already. Nice to count you among my army, small sprite. Now what element is that? A shadow sprite? Perith had been sitting motionlessly on a chair for several hours, but he chose this moment to stand up. Walking closer to Sofia, he raised his right arm and summoned a small shield of light. Smart. Go on, sprite, attack Perith's shield. The sprite flew away from Sofia, it fluttered over to Perith and to Sofia's surprise, threw itself against the shield like a rock out of a slingshot. The sprite disappeared as it hit the shield, as if absorbed by the solid light, but Sofia could tell it was still there, on or inside the shield. The shield grew a bit dimmer. I think it made your shield weaker? The mana in your shield looks a bit looser now. Sofia recalled the sprite, which struggled to free itself from the shield for a second before being slung across the room, then fluttering back to Sofia's side. The shield is back to normal. The sprite is costing some mana to keep around, but I can't really say how much, less than what I regenerate at least. Maybe around 20 mana per second? The spell itself was around 100. No wonder Shaili runs out of mana so fast. Sofia activated the skill again, or at least, she tried. It took another 20 minutes before her second successful attempt, during which the black sprite had stopped hovering around her and started to roam around the room. This time, the sprite was of an unstable, flickering blue. It formed around Sofia's right hand and leisurely spun around it. Lightning? Perith raised his shield. Sofia grinned and gave the order to attack. The sprite moved in fast, angular motions and collided with the shield. It exploded with a thunderclap. Although it was quickly fixing itself, there was visible damage on Perith's shield. Lightning sprite. It's dead? Unlike the shadow sprite, which had survived its own attack and was currently exploring the bathroom, the connection with the lightning sprite had been severed. It was nowhere to be seen. Alright then. The next activation of the skill called forth a second shadow sprite, which quickly started following the first like a puppy following its mother. The third summoned a light element sprite. Just like Shaili's light sprite, it was reluctant at first, but after Sofia spent half an hour trying to coax it, it finally accepted to come closer, and settled atop her head. Finally. I'm not even going to try ordering it to attack, it's been hard enough to get it to come closer, I don't want to scare it away. I don't really get if these are very smart or not. They're weird, but they do have different personalities depending on their elements. I would call them cute, but they're also just flying specks of mana and light. So far I have 3 elements. Let's try to get a 4th one. Despite several correct activations, no more sprites appeared at all, leading Sofia to believe her current maximum number of sprites was 3. She asked the shadow sprites to go back and they quietly disappeared. The following 2 casts instantly summoned a lightning sprite each. Sofia spent the entire weekend getting used to the spell pattern and playing with sprites. Chapter 327, Prickly. Parith opened the door to 2 guests, who turned out to be Alith and Cynthia. Alith strode inside. Hoy! You good, Soph? No one's seen you in days. Sofia raised a hand but she couldn't talk, with her other hand, she helped guide the bone threads out of her chest. Give me a minute. Pierced lungs aren't great for the voice. Do you need help? Cynthia asked, uncertain about what she was even looking at. Sofia waved her off, pointing at the chairs followed by a thumbs up. If you say so, Cynthia's voice trailed. Alith nodded and jumped, landing right on top of a chair with a flip. Just Sofia doing Sofia things, don't sweat the details. Viewers going up. Sorrow has been there with the regulars for half an hour already, someone else just joined but it's my first time seeing them, their nickname is Resounding Echoes. Resounding Echoes. Could be anything. Maybe sound related, cacophony? Alith naturally suggested, Resounding Echoes, the god of stubbed toes. Cynthia pained to suppress a cackle. Hey, it might not be this, but I thought it sounded nice, Alith continued. You might in fact not be far off, Cynthia said, from what I gather. This one would be pain, or suffering. Or both at once, I guess. No one is saying a real name but that seems to be who this is. No way, it's really the god of stubbed toes. The resounding echoes of one scream when they hit the foot of a stone table? My genius astonishes me. Finally Sofia finished unraveling the bone guide, and she could finally speak. I think I get why they would come to watch me. Yet to no one's surprise, Soph. I don't know what you were doing, but it didn't look very pleasant. Also, in case you didn't notice, you're sitting in a pool of your own blood. This is just a way I found to speed up learning new wild spells. It's a bit painful, yes, but it's also very efficient. Look what I can do now. Sofia rose a finger and activated the magic in the now familiar pattern of Call Elemental Sprite. Shit. The spell failed and backlashed, adding another mouthful of blood to the puddle on the floor. Wait, Sofia told her 2 friends worriedly observing her wipe her mouth with the back of her hand, almost there, let me try again. She spat blood twice more before at last, a small yellow dot of light took form on top of her raised finger. With a shit-eating grin and a bloody mouth, she presented her new magic. That's a tiny light? Seems like quite the downgrade compared to the stuff you could already do, Alith commented as she observed the sprite from her chair. It's an elemental of light, Cynthia corrected her, go look through the spirit plane, you'll see the difference. That's so. In just a second, Alith's body turned misty and ethereal then back to normal. Oh, it kind of looks like a ghost slime. I don't really get what it's meant to do but it's a nice ghost pet. It's smarter than it looks, the offensive power is not great yet, but new magic is new magic. I'm sure I'll find a way to make it work with everything else. Well, thanks for checking up on me, but I need to get changed and go teach my first class of the week. Can't we just watch? Alith asked. Cynthia's red skin got redder. Alith, what do you? Alith raised an eyebrow. The class, I meant watch the class. Oh. Sofia blinked a few times. I don't think she can go any redder than that. I don't see why you couldn't watch, Sofia answered with a shrug. Never mind, she can. That makes me think, do the recessed watch you? You know. I can turn off the thing, but it leaves me with very few working skills so I usually, Cynthia's voice trailed off as she looked away. Quite the class she has. Why did the system give it to her of all people? I'll go change in another room then. Wait, you have a message from Death. Yeah. Here it is. I don't know what I expected. Underscore 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 The class came and went with Alith and Cynthia spectating from the back of the classroom. Arian was absent that day, so Sofia took the opportunity to cover a topic which barely applied to him with his invoker class, which was to know when to take a hit for your summons and when to let them take a hit for you. It was something Perith handled by himself most of the time, but that hadn't prevented Sofia from putting a lot of thought into it. When the time came to end the class, Sofia, Alith, and Cynthia stayed behind for a bit to chat after the students left, but were interrupted just 5 minutes in by someone knocking on the door. "Crap, is there another class here right after me?" Perith stood up to open the door, his armor flaring up on the way. The door opened to reveal a frowning Exidian man in his 40s wearing a student uniform. Ignoring Perith, he walked into the classroom, a dainty air of superiority etched on his face. What does this guy want? He would be handsome if he didn't look like a self-righteous ass. Reminds me of those scummy nobles from Skirich. Warrior, LV.249. Saying nothing, he observed the three seated ladies, ever so slightly shaking his head. "Teacher Valkyria, I have come to challenge you to a duel," he coldly announced. "You can do that?" "No, thank you. I want nothing to do with you." The man's frown deepened. "I am afraid that is not an option you have." Clearing his throat, he summoned a scroll in an iron tube and unfurled it. With a steady voice, he read its contents. From the competition's second week onward, students may challenge teachers within their filter in a singular duel for their token, to be overseen by Sir Tartaros. Each student may only challenge any given teacher once, and must wager 10 times the teacher's token holdings in gold coins for the challenge to be valid. Once these conditions are fulfilled, the teacher must attend the duel within a week if possible. The competition's previous rules still apply. See Barrel Death March. "Did you write that yourself?" Alith asked bluntly, and was promptly ignored by the man, who only had disdainful eyes for Sofia. "This feels like the kind of thing that I should be warned about in advance, no? I guess I was hauled up in my room for 3 days, but if this is real, it must be quite new, or Alith and Cynthia would know about it." Cynthia looked uncomfortable in the presence of the openly hostile man. "Should we go to the administration to check if this is real?" she suggested, eyeing at the door. The man threw her a disdainful glance. A small system window appeared at the edge of Sofia's vision. "Daddy hatred," he sneered at Cynthia. "This filthy goblin turd. You better go fuck him up. Break all his bones and heal them and break them again. Bathe in his blood. Make a bloody mask out of his dented shithead skull. I'll kill him myself if you don't. Invalid quest title, thoroughly humiliate the opponent in a fair duel without losing any health. Reward, evasion skill evolution. Will you accept? Yes/no. Alright, if you ask so politely. Quest accepted. Time limit, 1 duel. I can't kill him though. Or permanently injure him, for that matter. But everything else should be fine. I'll be looking forward to that skill evolution, hatred. Fine, I'll duel you, do you have the gold? 10 times the amount of tokens is no small fee. The man threw a small golden ring at Sofia like it was trash. I see you have come to reason. 45 gold ingots. So I have 450 tokens? Never bothered to count them. Sofia quickly inspected the contents of the ring, which were exactly as announced, then she threw it back to him. I guess TLDR really has a monopoly on storage rings, it's what they use all the way to Exidian. Old Lich must be filthy rich. What's your name and when do you want to fight? Marquis Ferdinand Proudwall. We will hold this duel this evening. I shall demonstrate your inadequacy as a Brythal teacher, he spewed with contempt before turning on his heels and leaving. Sofia had to explicitly order Perith to not clobber the man on his way out as she could feel the hit coming. Proudwall. Silence regained the small classroom. Lovely individual, Alith sarcastically said and snickered, should have been born in France, he'd fit right in with the nobles there. A conglomerate of prickly baboons. What's a baboon? Cynthia asked. Wait, that word ain't censored. Chapter 328, Bear Witness. Are you not going to prepare? Cynthia asked, incredulous, as Sofia suggested that they go find Sarius so they could all have lunch together. Prepare what? I don't need any preparations, I'm always ready to fight. I don't have to worry about foul play since we have a level 500 referee. So I'll just beat this guy up and take the money, no need to make a big deal out of it. Why'd he be so hostile towards you in particular though? He made it sound like a personal issue, Alith asked. Arian, the student who was absent today, has the same family name. It was on his data that he's the eldest son of some duke, though, so this guy is probably like his uncle, I suppose? Could be his great-grandfather too for all we know. He looked quite old for someone our level. As for what his problem with me is exactly, no idea. I mean, Aredes looks younger than him, but that doesn't mean much. I guess at a certain point people just chose if they want to look old or young. But the real question is, does this Aryan kid dislike you or something? Think he has a reason to complain about you? Maybe their family just don't like other races other than the Exidians? The way he looked at me was a bit scary, Cynthia added. I have no idea what his issue is, but I don't think Aryan wanted this to happen. He's a bit stuck up sometimes, but he's still polite and a hard worker. I think he's not indifferent to my looks either. Honestly, if he knew this was going to happen, I'd be faster to believe that he didn't come today out of embarrassment rather than because he was the instigator and somehow disappointed in my teaching. Who knows with the nobles? Could be anything. Maybe he just doesn't like the way you dress. Nothing's off the table. Let's just get Saria and Asti for the meal. Not Zire? Sofia asked. Nah, she's busy preparing for an open class or something like that. I think it's better not to bother her. The trio left the classroom. Oh right, Alith, you've had alchemy classes with Eternam already, right? How is it? Old man bird guy? He knows a lot. It's been really interesting, especially how he mixes the underscore 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 un. Sofia and Perith made their way to the same underground arena she had fought the crystal monster in. In the large corridor leading to the closed double doors of the arena, there was no one else. Everyone said it was very noisy with all the duels, but this is quieter than a forgotten tomb. Is there no one inside either? I thought Saria said she would bring some people to cheer me on. Extending her mana senses further through the walls, Sofia stopped. Holy! The seats are packed. Is there another event going on? The strange void near the other side has to be that Tartaro's guy. He felt like that during the opening ceremony too. That's at least 1,000 spectators in the seats and no one is fighting in the arena. There's no way they're here to watch me, right? What if they are? They actually are, aren't they? Not good. I actually need a second to think this through. I can't lose health, so demon form and one with suffering are useless, so are the false immortality runes. Bolts are fine, but only the piercing ones. I won't lose health with the new armor. I need to humiliate the guy for hatred to be happy with the quest, just not losing health isn't enough. Should I go in there with no armor? Depending on this guy's skills, this could work out well. Oh, I've got a good idea. This should work, right? Sofia walked back until she found one of the many public restrooms of the academy, and quickly got changed into what the dwarven clothier had sold to her as a ladylike long robe with a lot of beautiful lace and frills, perfect for tea parties with the nobility and other such distinguished occasions. I can't believe this dwarf really made me buy a corset. This stuff is suffocating. Does look good though. Sofia double-checked all her stuff, making sure to wear all the golden pieces of the saint set as well as her crown. Letting her hair flow behind her back, she grabbed her scepter out of her storage. The last step was to remodel her wings so that they looked less undead, and more like beautiful bird wings. White feathers look good. They're rigid and made of bone, but that'll do the trick. And we're all set. As a last detail, Sofia summoned her pet crow out of the book. She felt more confident with it on her shoulder. She walked all the way back to the arena's doors. It was still just as silent, yet the atmosphere seemed a bit tense. Maybe I'm just imagining things. Let's just hope they're really waiting for me, or this might be embarrassing. Sofia opened the doors. Voices finally reached her, shocked murmurs, excited whispers. She's here. The crazy teacher. The hand stealer. As she had felt, the rows of seats were full, and opposite her, waiting in the arena, was a stoic and fully armored Ferdinand Proud Wall. Sofia took a few more steps inside the arena, and Perith closed the door behind her. A quick glance at the seats was enough to spot a lot of people among the numerous students. Of course Saria was there with everyone else who had followed from sect, but in a place seemingly reserved for teachers, quite a few of them were present. Among them she recognized Eternam, the twins, Jennifer, and even the hobgoblin one. The headmaster and Beryl were nowhere to be seen, but in the small booth for the referee, Saint Tartaros stood tall, an inconspicuous Exidian lady sitting behind him in the shadow. Last but not least, Sofia spotted all 5 of her students. Arian was sitting with a bunch of richly dressed Exidians, far from the rest of the class. He was looking down, so Sofia couldn't catch his expression. Him expected, everyone was staring at Sofia with bated breath. Well, I'll be damned, that's a lot of pressure. I'm not used to so many people watching me fight. Or watching me at all. Arim, all right. Good day, everyone, are you ready for today's class? There were a few cheers from the students' direction. Shaili and Alith were probably the loudest, besides that, there was not much of a reaction. Well, that's a start. You are late, Teacher Vakaria, Ferdinand retorted from the other end of the arena. I'm not, but sure. All mithril, longsword and shield. He might actually survive a few hits. On this day, I shall prove to everyone gathered here that a nameless barbaric sod of your stature is unfit to teach at Brythal. The tension thickened in the arena, there were hushed gasps from the crowd, expressions of confusion, and sometimes of approval. Everyone was waiting for Sofia's defense. Bold of you to doubt Headmaster Bulliginus' good judgment, she struck back. The reactions were mixed, some in the audience whispering, a few clapping in support, and others murmuring in surprise. The Marquis' already existing frown deepened, anger flashed through his face for an instant, swiftly replaced by the same superior look of disdain he had shown her earlier that day. He proceeded to completely ignore Sofia's comeback. Are you planning to duel in that ridiculous get-up? Your shoddy crown is an affront to the Empire. I will not show any mercy in the face of such disrespect. From the seats came a few scoffs, a couple of disapproving murmurs, and even a handful of approving nods from the nobles sitting around Arian. Are you ready to fight or are you here to blabber on? Sofia casually answered without a care. The man's expression contorted, he closed the visor of his mithril armor's helmet, and readied his sword. It was Tartaros who spoke next from up above. Teacher Vakaria, present the tokens. Sofia untied the token pouch from her waist and held it up. Tartaros didn't have to lift a finger, the pouch freed itself from Sofia's hand and flew to the Saint of Strength's side. I will ensure the fairness of this duel and the safety of the public. Teacher Vakaria's wager is of 450 strength token, student Marquis Proudwall's wager is of 4500 gold. The duel will end if one of the contestants forfeits or when their health reaches 5% of their current total, the unwavering voice of Tartaros announced. Do both sides agree to these terms? As Tartaros declared the terms of the duel, the audience's anticipation grew palpable. Students exchanged excited whispers, and the teachers intently observed the two duelists. I do, they both answered at the same time. The silence in the arena thickened. Strength be your witness. You may duel. Right as Paratha's sanctified grounds activated, bathing the entire arena in a soft holy light, Sofia had the first move. Before the Marquis could do anything, a system window appeared above her head, for everyone to see. Health, 119,850/119,850. Chapter 329, Spine Chilling. Sofia summoned the Skull Choir, with only 8 skulls in the sphere formation, marking the corners of a cube around her. These were a new addition to the choir thanks to Shaili's contribution, fanged boar skulls with the special ability Intercept. The Marquis used some kind of magic with no obvious effect before charging forward, crossing the gap in an instant. His momentum and sword were stopped by Paratha's. They exchanged a few blows, judging each other's capabilities in a deadlock. About equal strength. Parath is slightly faster. A piercing angel's bolt started forming around Sofia's staff. She stood unmoving as Parath and the mithril-covered knight traded sonorous blows, trying her best to maintain a disinterested expression all the while she managed 4 skills at once, 2 of them still waiting to resolve. The Marquis' sword swung back after another head-on clash, he withdrew, taking a step back, and suddenly his body split apart. 2 perfectly identical copies appeared at his sides as he lunged at Parath again. The copies tried to reach Sofia. Let the left one through. Sofia knew Parath couldn't hold back the 3 swordsmen at once, so she would take care of one. She could tell the true Marquis was still the middle one, but he had actually split his mana into 3 equal parts to create these 2 clones. She had to assume that they were just as strong as he was. Seeing the opening, the left clone rushed toward Sofia, his mithril sword raised high. Heat Death didn't respond when she tried to negate the incoming blow. Not actually a magical attack? Bolt isn't ready. Boars. Sofia was within reach of the clone's sword. The overhead strike came with devastating force. The audience held their breath as the sword fell. The skull choir's boar heads regrouped and formed a wall. The sword collided with the choir's intercept, stopping it clean in its tracks and deflecting all the energy to the sides, blowing away the sand of the arena grounds. This is when myriad gravestones appeared out of the ground, and dozens of bony hands clawed at the clone. A volley of magical bursts from the real Marquis shot past Perith in an arc. Sofia dispelled it without even looking at it, the red magical particles of the attacks dispersing like they hit an impenetrable wall just before reaching her. The left clone's sword swept at the graveyard skeletons, hampering him, killing a few with each attack, but it still wasn't free when Sofia swung her staff at it. Seeing the blue lightning come, the clone self-destructed, its mana ran awry, and following it came a bright flash of light and the start of a shockwave. There were gasps and exclamations in the public. Things did not look good for the new teacher. Sofia paid 12,000 mana, and the explosion stopped, even its thunderous bang abruptly cut as the air stilled. Sounds of shock and incomprehension came from the spectating students. Mana, 391,059/417,100. Still plenty. The complete failure of his explosive skills seemed to destabilize the real Marquis, and while Perith parried a strike from the leftover clone, he managed to kick the Marquis in the chest, sending him flying a few meters back. Coordinating with Perith, another group of graveyard skeletons burst out of the ground, grabbing the armored legs of the second clone. Sofia finally released her piercing bolt, blowing the head of the clone clean off. The bolt traveled all the way through the arena, crashing against an invisible barrier protecting the teachers' seats. That's 2/3 of your mana gone. Sofia, though, observing the Marquis getting back up and readying another skill while his headless clone crashed to the ground. Perith was already charging. The Marquis disappeared. Sofia felt his mana reappearing right behind her. The Marquis' sword struck in a wide arc, tearing right through Sofia's back. Huge amounts of blood splattered everywhere before Perith could even teleport back. In the audience, some gasped, some covered their eyes, and some people cheered, celebrating the Marquis' apparent victory. But the cheers were short-lived. Sofia's health hadn't changed. Health, 119,850/119,850. Her torso and wings lit up, thousands of runes activating to give her a burst of strength and speed. She let go of her staff, and through the cloud of blood, her armored arm reached back, grabbing the sword-wielding arm of the Marquis. The blood had come from summon blood. Since the Marquis' mithril sword rejected magic, his melee attacks were purely physical. Using the phasing from the graveyard skeletons holding her ankles, hidden under her wide robe, Sofia had let it harmlessly go through her. The Marquis used some kind of strength boost, almost freeing his arm from Sofia's grasp, but Perith was already there. Right out of his teleportation to Sofia, he grabbed both of the Marquis' arms. Sofia made sure the graveyard skeletons switched to grabbing him, and pivoting her torso only, she turned around. The instant she faced the Marquis, a magic attack coming from the other side of the arena silently shot for her back like a deadly arrow. The skill the Marquis had used at the very beginning of the duel. To dispel it cost Sofia less mana than she could track. She smiled at the entrapped Marquis. He struggled, in vain, grunting from within his helmet. Perith's grip was too much. "You lose," Sofia sweetly whispered, letting his arm go to hide her mouth with her hand as she forced a haughty condescending laugh. The Marquis screamed, letting out a raging war cry, and Sofia saw the entirety of his remaining mana spread out through his body. With a last burst of strength, he almost freed himself from Perith's grasp, but Sofia's armored hand sprung forth. The dragon scale claws pierced through the mithril armor right at the base of the Marquis' neck. His scream was choked out. Sofia's hand reached his spine. She pulled her hand back with her gory prize of a few cervical vertebrae and broken shards of mithril armor. A bloody hole in his gorget, the Marquis went limp. Much like when the Marquis had struck before, the crowd's reaction was varied: shock, outcry, cheers, disgust, all mixed into a cacophony of loud reactions. With her other hand, Sofia opened her challenger's visor. "Any more tricks?" No answer came from the contorted face and bloodshot eyes of the Marquis. Not that he could speak even if he was dying to. "That's what I thought." Perith let the Marquis go, his limp body falling loudly onto the bloody sand of the arena. Everything stilled, and while nobody was able to move any more, a warm green light enveloped the Marquis' dying form. The Saint of Strength's voice cut through the silence. He appeared next to Sofia, Perith, and Ferdinand, Student Ferdinand Proudwall's health has fallen below 5%, I hereby declare him the loser of this duel under Strength's watch, and he will henceforth not be allowed to challenge Teacher Vakaria again. This marks the end of today's session. Tartaros disappeared, leaving the pouch of token and the stack of gold ingots at Sofia's feet, and everyone was able to move again. She never took a single step. That was crazy. The magic just disappeared. She never lost health at all. This teacher is insane. The students went wild. Quite a few people jumped down into the arena, including most of Sofia's friends and the people who had been sitting around Arian and cheering for the Marquis all the way. The first to reach them was an Exidian woman. She almost threw herself at the downed Marquis' side, crying and forcing what looked like a health potion down his throat before he could even get a grip on what he had just gone through. Is that his wife? Sofia crouched to pick up the gold. He'll be fine, the saint healed him. The woman sent Sofia a spiteful glare before turning back to the unconscious Marquis. Sofia looked down at the bits of the man's spine still in her hand. Can't say I didn't deserve this one, I guess. I'm not the one who started this shit, though. Man knew what he was getting himself into. Perith had dispelled his weapons, arms crossed, his empty eye sockets stared down at the Marquis and the lady. He looked proud of himself, satisfied. Nice show, too bad you bloodied your new robe, Saria said as she walked up to Sofia. Alith and Cynthia were right behind. That was fast, Alith stated, and Cynthia added that her viewers had liked the show. It wasn't much, I didn't use half my skills. Well, whatever. Eternam, Astelia, and Zire also came each with a small comment, and Sofia was starting to feel a bit overwhelmed, especially because she couldn't cancel Runeforged Overlord, which was quickly draining all of her mana. And as it was starting to get hard to understand what anyone was saying between her friends, the students, and the Marquis family, which had come down with various opinions, Sofia's focus turned to something else entirely. Quest complete, congratulations! Your reward will be delivered soon. A new evolution choice was unlocked for the skill, Evasion. Chapter 330, Dodge Me. Sofia was currently in Bulliginus' office. She had had her doubts about the old dragon accepting to receive her like this, but it seemed the headmaster was usually agreeable with lending a helping hand to his teachers through his tremendous knowledge. Teacher Eternam said you were the most likely to know what this exclamation mark was about, short of asking an archangel directly. The headmaster stroked his long white beard, as he slowly read through the system window. Evasion, while moving out of the way of attacks or projectiles, gain a temporary bonus of 100%, skill level, movement and reaction speed. Available evolutions for Evasion LV.100, all levels will be lost. Evasion 2, while under attack, gain 140%, 100% plus, skill level *40, max 300, movement and reaction speed as well as half as much thinking speed. Smear, gain 249%, class level, movement and reaction speed. Bending steps, projectiles and attacks move out of your way. Walk forth. A peculiar indicator indeed. Scribes would usually provide some insights on such warnings, it is curious that it does not. I believe I understand what this may signify, but I will need to have a look at your other skills if you seek a definitive answer. Sofia tilted her head, are you certain you want to see? There is some stuff in there that even you cannot unsee. Belligenus narrowed his eyes. It takes more than mere words to scare old lizards and wizards alike. I happen to be both. That being said, I seek not to offend a certain rabbit, so forget about sharing anything, let me simply impart some knowledge and let you decide on the best course of action for yourself. This will cost you a class credit. I shouldn't be surprised that he knows about Aretes. The great sage, That would be my honor, teacher. The headmaster turned around. His hands behind his back, he contemplated the view over Exalta and his academy. Measuring each word, he explained, classless spells, as categorized by the system, are most often the rawest of body and soul enhancement magics. Figure yourself as a large tree. The system's class skills are your branches. Grow a branch, cut it, grow a new one, it rarely matters. Sometimes a branch becomes too large and important to cut without endangering the trunk, it is a core branch, the system will lock them. The classless skills are different. Are classless skills the roots? No. Classless skills are not the root nor the leaves. Classless skills are carvings, new channels inside the trunk. They allow mana, the sap, to flow in new ways. Unlike a branch, if you forget them, they will clog and scar. You can always claw away at the scar tissue to reopen the old channel, but it will undoubtedly cause some damage. Permanent damage. That explains why classless skills have a long cooldown before you can learn them again after discarding them, so then my sprint skill is actually a bit damaged? Its mana pathways are, at least. In the case of what the system so innocently labels skill evolutions, it closes some channels and digs new ones aplenty to enhance the skill as much as it possibly can. This takes a huge amount of space in the trunk. Oh. And I have a lot of classless skills. And one is already evolved. Sofia waited for the next part but there was none. My trunk is already full, she tried. That would be unexpected and very bad news. Full? No, not at all. Belligenus turned around, closing an eye, he observed Sofia. You are perhaps around halfway there? Many of your core branches are tightly interlocking, clogging the estate of your trunk, but there is a lot of space yet. The issue, I am confident, lies elsewhere. In the overlaps. I had overlapping skills before, the system made me forget one to learn the other. I assume that was cutting a core branch to replace it. You cannot cut away the channels. So I cannot learn that skill because it overlaps with another one? Or does it mean the mana will have to be split between the two, giving diminishing returns? Two wrong answers. What happens is, you will have to fight to combine all the overlaps into a new whole. Either you make it, or you don't. Very high risk, but if the combination is good and you succeed, very high reward. Either way, there is absolutely no coming back once it is done. Evolved classless skills take up a lot of space, I'm willing to bet Way of the Fool is the issue then. So I'm risking losing both Evasion and Way of the Fool if this fails? I'm getting cold feet already. Bending steps wasn't even my first choice in the first place. Do you believe I should take the risk? How likely am I to combine them correctly? Worth the risk? Impossible for me to tell. Only your scribe knows. How much do you trust them? Giving you the option certainly wasn't unintentional, I can confirm as much. There is no likelihood of success or guidance toward it which I am able to give beyond that. Once you take the skill, you will know what to do, and it will be up to you. It will take a few days, you may be excused from your teacher duties during this time if you wish to proceed with it. I recommend doing it in the safety of your room, Belligenus explained before turning back to look at the city through the window again. Thank you very much for your time and advice, Sofia bowed as she thanked him, and turned to leave, but before opening the door, she turned back, sorry to keep bothering you, but would you happen to know what exactly the proud walls have against me? No one has been able to provide a clear answer yet. No answer. Sofia turned again, grabbing the handle to open the door. Right then Belligenus' voice came from behind, your ID is dirty, you should dust it. Sofia turned around to thank the headmaster again, only to realize she was now in her own room, holding the handle of her bathroom door. What? If I didn't know who he is I would think I'm hallucinating right now. I guess he just teleported me here. That was completely seamless. Parith jumped out of the storage ring now that they were out of the headmaster's office. He rarely stayed in the storage now unless Sofia needed to go unnoticed or to enter narrow spaces he wouldn't fit in. So what do you think? It's a bit compelling, isn't it? Smear is a straight and safe upgrade. Clearly my first choice. It more than doubles the bonus from evasion and completely removes the prerequisite of needing to be actively avoiding attacks. Evasion 2, while initially not as impressive, eventually becomes slightly better thanks to the bonus to thinking speed. That being said, Smear's bonuses scales up to the class level while Evasion 2 stops at 300% bonus speed and 150% bonus thinking speed. So perhaps at a very high level, they average out to being about equal. But bending steps is just weird. It gives very little detail, and seems to be the opposite of what evasion was meant to do. You no longer evade, attacks evade you. I would never pick that. But then, the exclamation mark. The possibility of something greater. Basically this is a free fusion ticket. The whole is likely to be better than the parts, and it will most likely free up a skill slot, which is big. Also, projectiles and attacks move out of your way. Walk forth really gives off the same feeling as the fool always stumbles but never falls. The kind of reality-bending rule that somehow works out, defying all logic. Sofia stared at both her skills. Evasion, while moving out of the way of attacks or projectiles, gain a temporary bonus of 100%, skill level, movement and reaction speed. Way of the Fool, analytical thinking is 80%, 1 *skill level plus 50, more efficient when used for personal gains. The fool always stumbles but never falls. Gain extra experience from performing kills with trickery and deceit. To risk losing those. Actually, it's fine. I can always take that weird crystallized skill to supplement the loss in thinking speed. Losing evasion is bad, but today's duel proved I have other decent ways to defend myself. I'll just have to get another classless movement skill to replace it even if it's worse. I can afford the risk. I'd ask Saria and Alith, but there's 100% chance that they both tell me to risk the fusion, isn't there? Underscore 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 un. Sofia went through her class the next day as usual. Sadly, Arian was still not there. She warned the students that there would be no more classes this week. On her way back, she stopped by Astelia's room to tell her what she was doing, so that at least someone else would know, after which she put up a "Do Not Disturb" sign on her door and locked herself in. Sitting on her bed, she looked at Parith. This is going to be fine, right? Can't be worse than Sorrow's ritual. I know you'll be there to help if something goes wrong, so it doesn't feel as bad. Let's do this. Your passive evasion LV.100 has evolved to bending steps LV.1. Changes were instantaneous. Sofia felt something go very wrong inside of her. And she was hit by a strange, newfound clarity, as if she had opened her eyes to the mana of her classless skills for the first time. Warning! Colliding mana pathways. Forceful fusion of the skills bending steps, way of the fool, fast reading and sprint, now ongoing. Please guide your mana while your scribe shields your core. Estimated scribe lifetime, 81 hours. Please conclude the fusion or delete all the colliding skills before then. Sprint and fast reading too. And a fucking deadline. This is so much worse than I expected. Sofia quickly switched gears to try and salvage the situation. Guide your mana wasn't much of an indication as to what to do, but it was a start. Focusing on her inner mana pathways, she could vividly feel points of tension. They emanated dull pain which resonated through her body and soul. In these points, mana was going berserk. The pathways connected in weird ways, leading in streams of mana colliding or crossing each other. Other pathways were dried up, there was not a drop of mana to be found anywhere in them, and Sofia could feel them starting to crumble. There were thousands of such issues all over the place in the space where the four skills crossed. For a bit, Sofia was fascinated by the newfound ability to view her inner mana pathways so clearly when she could normally only feel the class skills this well. A whole new part of the workings of her mana had opened to her, and yet she couldn't waste a single second. The more she dawdled, the more new issues cropped up as the colliding skills created a chain reaction of clustered or dried pathways. One by one, she painstakingly fixed all the conflicts, cutting the flow of mana, making sure there was no clogging, sometimes carving new paths herself with precise mana bursts and discarding others like miners would collapse a dangerous tunnel to seal it off. A full 76 hours later, with sore muscles, sweaty brows, and only a measly 250 minutes left on the clock, Sofia resolved the final conflict. She thanked her luck for the processing pills she had gotten from the gachapon boxes, without which there was no universe in which she could have ever come close to accomplishing that in so little time. All colliding pathways have been fixed, fusion successful. Congratulations! Relief coursed through her body and mind, along with a clear feeling of heightened awareness. Sofia instinctively opened up her status. Bending steps, sprint, way of the fool and fast reading were all gone, and with them 2 of her classless skill slots, leaving her with only 7. That was a bitter surprise considering the amount of risk and effort getting there had required. Yet, Sofia smiled ear to ear as she read the name of her new skill. Sir Scribe, you spoil me. Dreams of a demon which gods envy, March of the Envoy.